We are just under 3 days to the NBA Trade Matchmaking. It's currently, if you're watching us live, it's 3:14 on the East Coast on Monday.
Does Giannis get traded?
I'm going to say
I want to bet on it
yes.
now.
Yes.
And
before
how long
Thursday's
will we
3
be on
Eastern
the air?
deadline.
Like an hour?
Well, yeah.
2 hours? 3 hours?
Probably. Probably.
Because it will be big.
Hey, it could happen Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. Bucks have 3 days to figure it out. A little less than 3 days now. Let's play Trade Matchmaker with John Gonzales and Sam Quinn. We asked both of you to come up with a trade partner for Giannis and some others. But Sam, lead us off with your match for Giannis.
Yeah, there's been all this talk about the Portland Trailblazers being a facilitator in a Giannis trade because they have all of Milwaukee's first-round picks between 2028 and 2030. Well, why not just send Giannis to the Blazers themselves? There was some reporting from Mark Stein and Jake Fisher over the weekend that the Blazers have registered some interest. It's going to be a little bit of a long shot. You're going to have to get Giannis to agree to stay in Portland long-term, which doesn't seem like the sort of market a player of his stature would typically be interested in. But they have Drew Holiday. They have Damian Lillard, former teammates of his. They're loaded with assets, and they can make this trade with Milwaukee in such a way that they're not gutting their team. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, can you give the Bucks their first-round picks back between 2028 and 2030? Give the Bucks a chance to rebuild organically. You send them Scoot Henderson, the number 3 overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft. Hasn't quite worked out for him in Portland. I think Milwaukee, given all their shooting, would be a nice alternative destination for him. Maybe throw in one other young guy, a Shaedon Sharpe here, a Donovan Clingan there, Jeremy Grant to match the money. It's unconventional, but if you put Giannis with those old teammates, you give him Denny Avdija, chosen for his first All-Star game yesterday, I think they could be a pretty competitive team. And if you're Portland, when are you ever going to have a chance to trade for somebody this good? After all those years with Damian Lillard, hearing nobody wants to come to Portland, you're in the driver's seat. You have Milwaukee's picks. Go do this. Take the swing.
Sam's a creative thinker. He's an outside-the-box thinker. I'm a simple man. And I think that we're galaxy braining this thing too much here. I'm going to send Giannis to the team that makes the most sense, and that's the cleanest fit, and that's the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors are 8th in the Western Conference. They're 13th in defensive rating, 5th in offensive rating. They're not that far away from being a plucky, maybe a little bit of a problem in the West. Right now, they just lost Jimmy Butler for the season with an ACL injury, and they've been sitting on Jonathan Kuminga for far too long. Jonathan Kuminga could certainly use some shots in Milwaukee, right? So let's ship Jimmy Butler and Jonathan Kuminga to Milwaukee in exchange for, and maybe you sprinkle in a Pajemski as well, in exchange for Giannis. And this is, I think, for the Golden State Warriors makes complete sense because he would be a seamless fit next to Steph Curry, who, by the way, is 37 years old, still a really good player, made second-team All-NBA last year. He's an All-Star starter this year. He's going to make All-NBA again, but that window is closing. We're not going to have Steph in Golden State forever, so why not try to maximize the time that you have with him? Go get Giannis now that the Bucks are finally shopping him, and see what you can do in the Western Conference. And by the way, instead of like all these different moving parts, the Warriors have up to 4 first-round draft picks that they can throw into that deal to sweeten it. I think it makes sense for both sides.
All right, so what do you think of Kuminga then going to Milwaukee in that deal?
Yeah, this is the flip side, right? I mean, we're focused on Giannis going to Golden State because he's Giannis, but the Warriors have been sitting on Jonathan Kuminga forever. Now, it feels like forever, but he's only 23 years old. But they had that really contentious offseason contract negotiation that bled into training camp. And they also added in on that 2-year deal that Kuminga ended up signing a team option on the second year. It was designed to be a tradable contract. Well, now that you have a situation that you can use Jonathan Kuminga to get Giannis, and Jonathan Kuminga can go off to Milwaukee and finally find some shots, right? We can finally see whether or not Jonathan Kuminga is any good. The jury is still out on this. Nobody really knows what Jonathan Kuminga is because Steve Kerr decided somewhere along the way, previously when they were doing that 2-track system where they're trying to play the young guys and the old guys at the same time, that wasn't going to work and he was going to shelf Jonathan Kuminga. He didn't like the spacing alongside Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. I get it, but it is time for Jonathan Kuminga to go somewhere where he can put up some shots and figure out what his game is, and that's Milwaukee.
Some teams have already been active more than 3 days before this deadline, and the Sacramento Kings are one of those teams going out and shipping off a couple players for DeAndre Hunter, and now speculation running rampant after they held Domantas Sabonis out of last night's game with a quote-unquote injury, but who knows with that? Where do you think he could go, Sam?
I love the Toronto Raptors as a fit for Domantas Sabonis. They have Jakob Poeltl at center, but he's been hurt. He's got a kind of an iffy long-term extension. I think if the Raptors could get off of that contract, they'd be happy to do so. Maybe throw in R.J. Barrett to match the rest of the money, and you give the Kings a couple of first-round picks. This is a teardown for Sacramento. There is nothing sacred there. There are no players worth preserving. You have the worst record in the NBA right now. All that matters is making sure you have a bad record so that you can have a top pick in this year's loaded NBA draft, and then stockpiling assets for the future. That Sabonis fit in Toronto is really interesting to me because that team has the defensive infrastructure to protect him on that end of the floor. That's been the concern his entire career. Can you defend with Sabonis, who's not a good rim protector, as your center? The Raptors could, and he could really help them on offense. The passing would fit very, very well into Darko Rajakovic's egalitarian pass-heavy offense, give them another high-level scorer and creator. I think the fit there would be perfect.
You want bad basketball? The Brooklyn Nets are saying, hey, look at us, because last night, for the second time in a couple weeks, they lose by more than 50 points. And, John, last night it was to a team that you have them making a deal with.
Yeah, they would love to get worse, and this is a good way for it to happen if we could ship Michael Porter Jr., who's been the best player on that team this season, to the Detroit Pistons, who are first place in the Eastern Conference. I'm a Detroit Pistons believer. Cade Cunningham made All-NBA last year. He's a top 5 NBA candidate this year. Jalen Duren has made the leap. They dominate everything in the paint, but they could really use some more shooting. It's been a lot of Duncan Robinson and not much else. They're 18th in three-point percentage. Michael Porter Jr., he's the biggest non-Giannis name that's out there. He's having a career year in Brooklyn, was an all-star snub, a little bit of a snub in the East, but it has had a career year in Brooklyn. He's big, he's fast, he's strong, he's athletic, and crucially, Chris, he can shoot, right? So now all of a sudden, if you're the Nets and you want to get worse and you want to keep tanking, maybe you go and say, all right, we'll take Jaden Ivey, who has kind of fallen out of favor. He's in the rotation, but hasn't really lived up to expectations this season. Maybe a Ron Holland, and they can dangle up to 4 first-round picks. I don't think it's going to take that many to get Michael Porter Jr. He's not Giannis here, but a couple could pry him away, and he'd look awfully good in Detroit.
All right, one more trade matchmaker, and it comes from Sam, and it's for an organization that was rocked last week by that Paul George suspension.
Yeah, Paul George going to miss the next 25 games for Philly. They're going to need another wing. And really, other than that one issue of not having Paul George for the next 25, Philly's in pretty good shape. Joel Embiid is looking like an all-star again. Tyrese Maxey obviously been great all year. VJ Edgecombe, a future star. This East is wide open. Let's go get a defender. Let's go get Herb Jones. From the New Orleans Pelicans, they reportedly want a very hefty package of draft picks. Philadelphia can accommodate because they still have 2 upcoming picks from the Clippers, who aren't looking that great. They're an older team right now. You trade those picks for Herb Jones, you get a lockdown defender, and then you get Paul George back, at the end of March. Now you're looking at one of the deeper wing rotations in the NBA, next to those great guards, next to a resurgent Joel Embiid. Now you could win the East. This East is wide open. Daryl Morey loves to take big swings at the deadline. There's talent here to be gotten. There is a conference to be won. I think Philly should take the plunge, go get Herb Jones, go try to win the East.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is a great idea for the Sixers, who generally are snake bitten, and I want to stay away from talking about the Philadelphia 76ers, who I grew up watching and covered for quite some time. Sam, this is an excellent idea, and you're absolutely right about that wing rotation being killer. And then all of a sudden, PG, when he comes back from that 25-game suspension, now all of a sudden he's healthy, they're loaded, they've got a whole bunch of pieces that are super switchable. Sam has been doing a lot of trade machining while we wait for the trade deadline, and this is one that is not so much Galaxy brand is like right on point. I want this one to happen.
All right, currently sitting 6th place in the Eastern Conference are the 76ers. We'll see how many of these come to fruition over the next 3 days. Thank you so much to the fellows as we look at the odds to win the whole thing. And people think it's coming out of the West. I mean, even though you got the Pistons playing really well in the East, they're still 14-1. But the Thunder, the defending champs, almost even money. And right behind them, it's the Nuggets at plus 650.
Okay, so if we're playing Matchmaker, those are the people you're going to swipe right on. We're going to tell you the people you're going to swipe left on, the players that teams should avoid, including Zion, next.